I didn't say.
All right, looks like we're on the air. All right, good evening and welcome to Thursday, January 13th, 2022, Xenia City Council meeting. At this time, we will rise with the invocation led by Mr. Joe Kennedy, representing Faith Community United Methodist Church and the Xenia Rotary, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which I'll take care of. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today in front of all of you friends and mentors in my life. We could just pray. God, we are so humbled by the blessing of this city and the gift of these people here in this room. We thank you for this day, for our lives, for your grace. We give you thanks. We thank you for our community and for those who serve. We ask your divine guidance in all we do, and all we say, and all we think. In your Son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy, for that invocation. And at this time, we'll call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Here.
Councilman Scrivens?
Here.
Councilwoman Dean?
Here.
Councilman Branham?
Here.
Councilman Urschel?
Here.
Mayor Mays? President Smith?
Here. At this time, I will make a motion to excuse the mayor tonight due to a personal matter in her family tonight. So our prayers are with her. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Branham. Any discussion on the excusal of the mayor for tonight's meeting? Okay. Roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our annual reorganization of the election of the council president and vice president for 2022. At this time, normally we would hand the gavel over to our mayor to run this portion of the meeting. In her absence, we will be handing the gavel to our city clerk, Michelle Johnson, who will begin the nomination process. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, President Smith. I will call for nominations for the position of president for the 2022 term.
Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate Wesley Smith for president.
Councilman Smith has been nominated as president for the 2022 term.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, can I hear a roll call?
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
You could have voted no.
I could have.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I will now entertain nominations for the position of vice president for the 2022 term.
Okay. I would like to nominate Will Urschel for vice president.
Okay. Councilman Urschel has been nominated.
I'll second.
Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, can I hear a roll call?
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Councilman Urschel
Michelle.
has been named vice president for 2022. Would you like to take a brief recess to rearrange your seat?
Yeah, we'll just take about 3 minutes. You guys will rearrange a couple chairs and some name tags, and we'll start here in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Better you than me.
All right, you guys ready? All right, we're going to go ahead and continue our meeting. Next on the agenda for tonight's meeting is the approval of minutes from the December 29th, 2021 regular meeting. Who would like to make a motion to entertain the minutes into record?
Mr. President, if I could, on page 2, page 3, just at the bottom, the last line, maybe we could clean that one up just a bit. I have will be placed, so insert a B and a D, a BE and a D. Other than that, Mr. President, I don't see any other corrections.
City Clerk, do you see that noted? Okay.
Council President?
Yes, sir.
I just want to mention that Michelle knew prior to the meeting, she did make one little slight adjustment to the number, it was number 2 on the item. Basically, there was a mistake on the voting. I voted nay instead of abstain. So she had noted that and sent an email out prior to the meeting.
Right, I got that. Thank you. Noted on that. Any other additions or corrections? At this time, I'm just asking for a motion right now. Who would like to make that? Okay, moved by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Branham. Any other additions or corrections? All right, we'll move for a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Next in our agenda tonight is a special presentation. Tonight we have, is that Sibbing?
Sitting.
Okay, Tracy Sibbing. She is Vice President for Community Impact United Way of the Greater Dayton area regarding our Strong Families Homelessness Prevention Initiative. Is that correct?
That's
okay,
correct.
Thank you. So at this time, if you could just come to the podium.
Great.
And we'll give you 10 minutes, okay?
Yeah, that
Thank
sounds
you.
great. I like to tell people, when I was first in my professional career, I worked in early childhood education, and all the little people called me Mississippi. That was my first. And then I graduated to telling people I am a sibling, however, my name is Sibbing.
Civic, that's right.
Yeah, so to differentiate that. But thank you so much for the opportunity. And I guess first I should say congratulations, President Smith
thank you.
and Vice President Urschel.
Sure.
Right?
Thanks.
So I come before you today to tell you about the Strong Families Initiative that we've launched in Greene County. I am the Vice President of Community Impact for United Way of Greater Dayton area, and I've been there for about 11 years. In the last couple of years, we did a strategic plan and thought about investments that we were making in our 3-county area, Montgomery, Greene, and Preble. And we determined that we really needed to narrow our focus and think about how we could have more of an impact on improving outcomes for people that live in the communities that we serve. We landed on this project, Strong Families, which is a 2-generation whole family approach to serving families and accomplishing 3 really important goals. 1, making sure that people had housing stability, that they stayed in their homes, that they could afford their homes, and that there was that sense of security for the family. 2, increasing income. What we know is that families need to make more money and have more money coming in the door so that they can meet their obligations and their bills and stay stably housed. 3rd, academic outcomes, but not quite just academic outcomes, kind of thinking about the whole family, thinking about the whole child. Improved attendance, improved academics, improved social and emotional well-being, physical health, and then family engagement, because that's the whole family approach, right? Thinking about how parents are engaged in their child's academics as well, and their ability to be successful during those years in life. We launched the project in July of this year. The United Way Board of Directors made the decision that we would shift dollars away from Montgomery County into Greene and Preble so that we could launch this initiative across our entire 3-county area. We have, basically the project is being implemented under a collective impact strategy. I'm not sure how many of you, if any of you are familiar with the first collective impact project we've done in Greene County, which is the Greene County Collective Impact Project to reduce drug overdose deaths. We've been very heavily engaged in that work for the last 3 to 4 years. Obviously, the pandemic has had a really catastrophic impact on the results of that particular initiative, but we stay true and steady in terms of trying to advance that work. Collective impact is a strategy that can solve any major issue that a community is experiencing. And I would say that across our 3-county area, one of those issues that we're facing is a lack of security in housing, is a lack of affordable or sustainable income for families to thrive and succeed, and for kids to be successful so that their future is brighter. So we're really excited to be launching this effort. Collective impact means a variety of things, but one of the things that it means is aligning with other organizations and systems within the county. That's a really important part of this because we want to bring to bear every available resource that removes barriers for success for parents and for children and to stabilize families. We also bring forward comprehensive case management so that families create a family success plan, they set goals for everyone in the family, and then we work with other service providers, with other systems level providers to make sure that they have access to the supports they need to reach their goals and be successful. The program serves families who are between 0% of the federal poverty guideline to 250%. The reason that this is important is because this program acknowledges that family that is between 200 and 250%, who United Way refers to as ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. They are, to all of our verbiage, the working poor. They work every day, but they still have to make really challenging choices at the end of the month about which bills they're going to pay first and whether or not their kid's going to get a new pair of shoes because they outgrew their shoes. Right? So they're working, they're contributing, but they are really living paycheck to paycheck. So it was really important for us as a United Way to include that demographic and the people that we were helping and supporting. It also provides a wraparound support and a transition plan for the folks that are coming out of the homeless shelters within Greene County, probably Montgomery County. Oftentimes what happens is that it tends to be a revolving door because once you get out of shelter, what's your plan? Who wraps around you? Who helps you navigate that space? Right? So we really need to have a plan to be able to usher those folks back into society and into working and into contributing as full citizens in the community. So I'm not sure how much more you want to hear from me. I really am anxious to answer questions because I feel like that is really more important. But we come before you here today to say that we are applying for funding. We would love to get some financial support from Xenia. We've applied to, and we will continue to apply to other opportunities for funding. But as a United Way of the Greater Dayton area, we made the initial investment by saying that we were going to move dollars and invest these additional dollars in Greene County to get this done. And I think that's really important in terms of our commitment, and we would love to have your support in this endeavor to support families in Xenia to do this work. And I welcome any questions.
All right,
I don't
great.
know if I was thorough enough, if I,
Yeah, thank you. At this time, we'll open up the floor. If any of my colleagues have any questions, if you would please
Mr. President.
direct those to our speaker.
Not so much a question as a statement. You know, what we know is that income secure, two-parent homes, the outcomes from an educational standpoint related to healthcare, service demand, we know that the more stable a home is, the lower the service demand, the better the outcomes educationally and so forth. So I appreciate that United Way is pursuing these opportunities and looking at getting at some core concerns that are without question a major concern in our community. So I think what they are pursuing is something the council should take a very serious look at.
All All right, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Tracy, can you just go over some of the other partner groups that you're going to be partnering with here in Greene County?
Absolutely. So part of the collective impact approach is to bring folks together around the table to do this work together. Why do we do that? Because there are lots of measures that we need to be looking at and accounting for, and there are lots of already existing resources. So we don't want to bring new resources necessarily to fill a gap, to fund something that is already being funded. There are 21, actually I think this Friday might boost us to past 30, but there are 21 partner organizations, and we meet every Friday, or not every Friday, once a month, the second Friday of every month. And basically they come together to talk about who are the referrals, what are the barriers, what resources need to be addressed, what partners can serve that issue. So it's Help Me Grow, it's Greene County Education Service Centers, so that we have a connection with all of the school districts. The homeless population, or not population, service population are at the table, public health, FCFC, JFS. There are so many more. I didn't bring my list with me, but it is 21.
It's in here.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And the reason that that is important, and the reason that this is important, is that it's not United Way coming onto the scene saying, we're going to help families. It's United Way coming onto the scene saying, let's coalesce every available resource that exists within this community to wrap around families, to make sure that we have more families who are stably housed and successful, that more kids are successful and stable. And that is why, and it is not just it's data sources from all of those organizations, it is best practices from all those organizations, and it is the ability to say, this is a strategy we implemented that isn't working, let's change it. Let's do something different that is more effective. Because data drives collective impact work, right? We want to, and right now we have some pretty good data. We started this project in Montgomery County, and it was really great data. 98% of families stayed stably housed. 81% of families increased their income. We didn't have such great results on the academics, but that had to do with records, which is why we intentionally partnered with ESCs. Because the ESC is going to help us access those attendance, academics, social, emotional, well-being records for the kids. But it's a proven track record for the last 8 years, which we need to expand and encompass all the folks from Greene County that can bring to bear services that remove barriers to families.
Yeah. And Tracy, can you mention how many families you're looking to come alongside, and what does it look like when you come alongside a family?
Sure. So right now, in United Way funding, we are able to serve up to 50 families. And that is not 50 families a year, that's 50 families at a time. So if families meet their family goals and transition out of the program, then another family can be added. And as I said, the 0 to 250%, if you are 240% and you're working full-time, your goals are probably going to be accomplished in a much smaller window of time than if I get someone out of shelter who is transitioning into a living arrangement. That family goal plan is going to change multiple times, and so we will have them much longer than a family that is already has a lot going for it and mostly just needs increased income. I mean, let's be really clear about that, right? Like, the big deal is increasing income and giving families opportunities, parents opportunities to earn a credential, to earn a certification, to have the ability to bring more revenue into their home to support their families. So I think that's a big deal. So with the increased income, our hope is that sometime during the year of 2022, early, first quarter, second quarter, we would be able to hire a second case manager and we would be able to serve 100 families in Greene County. That's really what we're trying to get to. That's where we're at in Montgomery County. We're only at 50 in Preble, but we are committed to this work, and we're going to be asking anybody and everybody to get behind us and support this work, because this is important work. Families need help. We all know what we've been through for the last 21 months. And it has exacerbated the issue of unstable housing. Our housing market is scary at the moment. And we have lots of opportunity in terms of income and employment. And so I really feel like the opportunity to serve more families in Greene County is upon us. And I'm looking to all of you to support us in terms of being able to support more families in Greene County in this work.
All right, very good. Any other questions?
Come on, I love to
Okay.
talk
Okay.
about this work.
I think we're good. Thank you very much. So if you could allow us to come back to this, we certainly will for you.
I appreciate
Okay,
it so
thank you.
much.
Mhm.
Yep, thank you very much. Everyone stay safe.
All right, next in our agenda tonight is the opportunity for audience comments. At this time, anyone who would like to address City Council may do so at this time. Please come to the podium, give us your name, address for the record. Limit your comments 2 to 3 minutes, please. Guess not. Okay. At this time, we will move on to old business. Our first item under old business is item 1, ordinance 2021-27. This is the second reading. This is providing for special election on amendments to Articles 5, 8, and 10 of the Charter for the City of Xenia at the said election to be held on the same date and times as the May 3rd, 2022 primary election. This was originally introduced by Mayor Mays at our last December meeting. In her absence, I will introduce. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. Any comments, questions, concerns regarding the second reading?
Mr. President, just a couple of comments. So, once again, I just want to thank the Charter Committee for all their hard work. It's been over a year preparing this, and our law director and members of council who participated in that. And once again, we're breaking this, plans to break this up into 3 separate portions because there's a lot of content here. But, you know, just from a very basic perspective, what we're going to get from this first pass at this is ability to operate council more effectively, the big item, clarify the difference between ordinances and resolutions, so we won't have so many emergency proposals being brought to us, and it's going to give us a little bit more flexibility in the management of our organizational structure of council, and it's also going to allow us to have a little more flexibility on hiring and actual some of the folks be able to bring in experience and do interview process versus just written exams, and some more flexibility, especially on jobs that you really would like to get a better understanding of folks' experience and past history in the job, just beyond just a written test. So these are all things just to help us operate more efficiently, effectively as city government, and I think these are great recommendations from the, once again, these weren't written by council, these were written by a group of folks that spent a year looking at how we operate and listening to everyone, and appreciate their work, and looking forward to putting this before the electorate here.
All right, very good. Any other comments or questions regarding the second reading? Okay. This time we'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean. Aye. President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item under the agenda is Resolution 2021-FFF. This is also a second reading. This is requesting the advance payment of 2021 tax settlements from the Greene County Auditor. This was introduced by then Councilman Urschel on our December 29th regular meeting.
I'll introduce.
Thank you. Move for passage by Vice President. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Any comments, questions, or concerns on this resolution? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. We have no public hearings scheduled for tonight. Our first item under new business is Resolution 2022-A, titled Emergency. This is authorizing the submittal of an application to the Ohio Department of Development for a brownfield remediation grant for the remediation of property located at 249 Sycamore Street and declaring an emergency. At this time, we'll turn it over to our city manager for clarification.
Thank you, sir. The state of Ohio, using federal stimulus dollars and as part of their 2021 state budget bill, created a new grant program, again known as the Brownfield Remediation Program. This grant program is designed to provide financial assistance to jurisdictions for the acquisition and remediation of brownfield, brownfield sites throughout the state of Ohio. City staff has identified the property at the aforementioned location of 249 Sycamore Street as a high priority remediation need and a viable grant application project. After years of evaluation, the city has had a good understanding of the site contamination issues and necessary remediation steps. I think we're all well aware of the very troubled history of criminal activity and other social concerns at this particular location. Moreover, we believe that the acquisition and remediation of the site would improve the redevelopment prospects for the AV building and promote reduction of vandalism and criminal activity at Xenia Station in that general vicinity. In your agenda report, we have detailed the staff's prior due diligence efforts to identify substances of chemicals of concern or substances of concern at the site and getting an understanding of what the needs are. And we've previously sought some means for accountability for the prior contamination. But as we suggest in the agenda report, we, to this point, have found no realistic viable means of enforcing the latter of those. So we have made that effort. Given no market rationale for private rehabilitation of the site, and given the social and public safety value of remediation and reuse, staff does believe that the successful award of funding through the Brownfield Remediation Program could provide resources to help accomplish the cleanup and promote some positive public repurposing for that site. Staff's recommending council approval of this emergency resolution tonight, authorizing application for the grant funding under the terms as detailed in your report. We did go into a little bit of detail with the Budget and Finance Subcommittee this evening, talking about the budget ramifications of this. What I want to stress is there is the possibility of an out-of-pocket match expense as detailed in the report. We just simply can't say for certain if we would be awarded and what portion of that award would be out of the county-specific funds versus the state funds, the statewide funds, or the funds requiring the match. So at this point, that's a worst-case scenario, but it could be nothing in terms of out-of-pocket. So just to be clear on that. And we are presenting the request as an emergency this evening because of a very tight timeline. The program was just open for funding, and it is predicated essentially on a first-come, first-served basis for consideration. So we do want to be able to get an application in as quickly as possible. Of course, if we are awarded, we'd be back to council for authorization for next steps. So.
All right, thank you. Questions for our city manager?
Brent, can you go over what was the history of those buildings?
Yeah, it dates back. Some of the original activities at the site that created environmental concerns date all the way back to the site was used as a coal gasification plant, so they were converting coal into natural gas essentially for use in lighting around the community. So there were a series of transactions that ultimately related to what was DP&L, what we would all know as DP&L, now AES. Through acquisitions and mergers and so forth. That is the entity that we tried to hold accountable. At the end of the day, we were unsuccessful in doing that. So there are issues related to that. There were a lot of automotive related contaminants, various petroleum related contaminants due to salvage yard type of activities. I believe there were also maybe some transformer type materials that were stored during some of the electrical entities' ownership, so your PCBs and so forth that or contaminants. So again, through the prior phase of environmental evaluation that we had grant funding to pursue, we've got a pretty good understanding of the nature of the chemicals of concern at the site. And I should say, you know, our projection for this, it's not a full cleanup in terms of soil removal and complete remediation that will allow unfettered reuse of the property. Our ultimate goal would be acquisition and cleanup to the point that we are capping and containing those, which would result in some limitations on how the property can be used. But again, that is the most cost-effective means of addressing the issue, which again, if there was a private sector solution to deal with this, by all means, there's no reason for the government to play a role. It's pretty clear at this point that there's no private sector solution because the cost of this type of remediation activity exceeds really the usable value of the land.
And Brent, can you go over what's currently physically resides on that property and the concerns we have?
Yeah,
with that?
so you have several dilapidated buildings that exist there. One building, due to an act of arson, caught on fire a number of years ago. We stepped in and brought the remainder of that building down, so you essentially have a pile of rubble. Adjacent to this property, there are 3 private residential structures currently occupied. In terms of long-term strategy, I think there should be some discussion about that as well. But the focus of this is on this former industrial property as a brownfield site by definition. Council may recall, our public may recall, we did have a suicide incident of a local juvenile a number of years ago at this location. Lots of criminal activity over the years. It's in large part because it's very isolated in its location and yet very accessible to Xenia Station, this public amenity. And again, given the location, the condition of the property and so forth, a market option just does not appear to be there.
So would this be the removal of the buildings as well?
Yeah, so the city has an option for acquisition of the site, and that's in large part contingent upon the city's ability to find funding, grant funding, to be able to deal with remediation issues. We are, I think, the end of this year, correct, Steve, is on our purchase option. So we're running out of time here to find an option. This is a perfect program for this activity. It really, truly is, and it's a gift opportunity. The grant funding is limited to acquisition and remediation activities. So again, the intent would be to remove the existing buildings, so those demolition activities are part of it, and then the opportunity to take steps to remediate this issue, which again would be through some engineering controls.
Right.
Steve, anything else you would offer with that?
There's a couple underground storage tanks that would have to be removed as well, but primarily it would be a cap and seal.
Is there a purchase price that's agreed upon with this 5-year? I just feel like I'm wondering if we're going to acquire another property that has no means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and we would agree. I mean, we've been trying to get into the business of divesting of property.
$1.
Yeah.
Purchase price is $1.
And the intent, the scope of project in terms of the scope of project and the intended reuse as we conceive it right now, we think this is an opportunity to cap the existing location, look at a parking facility to serve both Xenia Station, perhaps the AV building. There are some other grandiose plans, but within the scope of what funding would allow, that's likely reuse. We can't, again, given some of the covenants that would be on the property, we're limited in how the property can be reused. It can't be reused for a school. We can't actually put a park, but we can have an accessory use for the existing park there at Xenia Station. So again, I think this is a project the staff has had on its radar for a long time because we understand the social and economic impacts of this right adjacent to our downtown.
Yeah.
And given the very sordid history of activities at the site, we're trying to find a long-term solution.
I just comment that, I don't know how many of you have been down there, it's right off the bike path, from the UV building to the station. It's private property, so there, we were down there doing a lot of cleanup of the bike path and the woods around there, over the summer and fall, and are planning to continue to do that. But folks are going down there. The fence is broken into multiple spots, and as you put the fences back up, they can still break it down. And since it's private property, we can't necessarily go in and get people out of there. But there's just a lot of bad activity going on right in the center of town, and it's a blight that needs to be removed. And even if we didn't do this, we have the right, under our code to go in and remediate, to tear these things down, but it would be 100% at our cost to do that. I mean, we could file a lien on the taxes, I guess, if we wanted to do that, but whether we would ever recover that or not. But I mean, it's just a blight right in the center of what's going on. you have all the folks that are using the bike path, and I was just shocked at the number of folks who use that transition there, and you got people coming and going off the bike path down into there daily. We saw them all the time while we were there, and I just feel like as we're moving forward in the downtown area, this is an area we just desperately need to get cleaned up. And here, the brownfield funds were just approved by the county commissioners to be received about 3 weeks ago. And there aren't many other municipalities that even know about it right now, that those are available. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to get our proposal in ahead of everybody else and use these state funds or the county funds. And as a matter of fact, I heard the commissioners talking about the potential for this, and they seem very amenable to allocating the funds to this. So I think this would be a great project to get this cleaned up. And you're right, we probably will never be able to resell it, but if we can use it for adjunct parking, either for the EV building or for the bike hub area, but just to get a spot where it draws a lot of crime off the map from the center of town would be a great benefit.
Any other comments? Okay, at this time, we'll open for a motion to authorize the application as an emergency.
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moved by Councilman Dean as an emergency. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice President Urschel. Any additional comments or questions? I think it's great. I think that this is a really eyesore. I've picked up trash along there. It's not pretty. It's just so close to a beautiful amenity, Xenia Station, and it's not helping the EV building at all. So we've talked about this for years. So I'd like to see us be able to do something. So I'm in support of it. Any other comments? Councilman Scrivens?
Thank you, Mr. President. Have we spoken to the adjacent property owners?
In terms of the residential,
Right.
we have had conversations. One of those properties, the current property owner, I believe all three are not owner occupied, they're rental. Maybe one of them, one of the three. And I think one of the three, the owner is interested in potentially selling. But again, it's,
Down the road.
yeah, I think that should be part of the broader strategy, and we can, discuss, how we might pursue that. But to really fix all the problems, you really need to rehab that whole area.
If I can just make one other comment, so talking to there's a citizens group that kind of oversees Xenia Station, and they've said this is one of their biggest complaints that they have from folks that are using the Xenia Station and the biking there, and they have no power to correct it right now, but that's one of their major concerns. We had an individual came to council, had a couple of concerns. And I remember last fall, I can't remember the individual's name, lives on 3rd Street.
I remember.
Oops, right?
West 3rd.
West 3rd, you know what I'm talking about, right? So I went and met with him, and he said, I need to walk you down here to take a look at this. I didn't even know it existed before that. I found out a lot more. But he said, I was walking along the bike path. I had 3 juveniles run up here and assaulted him. And he said, why are you guys letting this place exist? And he said, those of us that live in this community down here in that area want to be able to use the bike path and that kind of stuff. But he said, it's scary because that there's people can live down there, do foolish things, and they have no control over what's happening with that. So.
All right, thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. This time I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item under new business is Resolution 2022-letter B, titled Emergency. This is approving the tentative collective bargaining agreement with ASME Ohio, Council 8, and Local 101 with the Xenia Chapter, Public Service Unit, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Merriman, it's your floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The city's negotiating team has been working diligently with our cohort with AFSCME Council 8, our local 101, with the bargaining unit to come to terms on a successor contract to replace their current collective bargaining agreement, which expires in February. Very pleased with the effort by staff and our collective bargaining team. We have
Do you have it?
We don't have
No,
this
we don't have it.
packet.
I don't have that packet.
Running everything for you.
Those,
I thought she gave it to you. I'll tell you what, Mr. President, if we want to hold off, we'll see if we can get that and
Yeah.
come back to it.
Yeah, we can come back
Okay.
to that in a little bit. Yeah, so, thank you. Our next item is Resolution 2022, letter C, titled Emergency. This is authorizing the sale of 23.4 acres of city-owned property located at Tremont Road and North Columbus Street to John and Rachel Howard. And this is also repealing Resolution 2020, letter Z, and declaring an emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. The city currently owns this 23.4373 acre tract of land. This is located at Tremont Road, North Columbus vicinity. The property was obtained by the city through a tax foreclosure in 2017. Our cost at that time was a little over $3,700 in court fees and a minor recording fee. We've had very little expense into the property since then. To be quite honest, it's mostly wooded and the maintenance expense is fairly minimal. June of 2018, Council authorized by Resolution 2018-Q, allowing staff to provide for negotiations for sale of the property, to list the property. We've participated in some good faith negotiations on some prior offers, but unfortunately we're in those prior offers not able to come to terms successfully. The city recently received, after reposting with a new real estate agent, and we try to cycle those through occasionally. We got 2 new offers on this property. One of these offers was from John and Rachel Howard, as indicated. This was determined to be a competitive and appropriate proposal with a sale price of $150,000 cash with an intended use as a single-family property. Staff met recently with our Property Management Committee, which received the offer and voted unanimously to recommend the sale as presented. Based on the facts that we've provided, staff is recommending Resolution 2022-C to allow us to commence with the sale of the property. The request this evening is for approval as an emergency, which would allow us to initiate this and commence it as quickly as possible, and that was at the request of the purchaser.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. City Manager, on that report. So at this time, I will open the floor. If anyone would like to make a motion to authorize this sale, and tonight this is done as an emergency.
So move.
Moved by emergency by Councilwoman Dean. We have a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice President Urschel. Does anyone have any other discussion regarding the sale of these 23 acres?
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I had seen this property before it came to the ownership of the city, and the owner that I knew back in the day who owned the property always wanted that property to be developed into a tract where we could build more than one house. At this point, even though it was approved by the Property Management Committee, I will not be supporting this because personally, I just don't think that a 23-acre single-family spot in the city of Xenia is what we need. I'd like to offer. You can't really tell people what to do when they own the property, but at this point, I'll not be supporting the transfer of this property for that particular use. And thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I do have one comment too, please, and I apologize, Ryan and Jason, because I normally would ask before the meeting. Do you have offhand the purchase price that we had originally with that Jackson's Trails from last year? How much we had?
I
The
can
offer?
tell you if you give me one.
Yeah, it
second.
was approved. I'm thinking it was around 100,000. It was less than this offer.
115.
Was it less?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I thought, but I couldn't recall off the top of my head, because I do remember approving it last time.
yeah, 115 does sound correct, but
I think it was 150.
Yeah, it was less than
it was
that.
less than, I was thinking 115, but it was approved by council. We can find it.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Right here.
Cody, what was that? I wasn't, what was the?
The previous, we had approved this, last year, I think it says even in the 2020, we had approved the sale of this property previously.
Oh,
And I
and
was curious of
it didn't
what
follow
that.
through?
It didn't follow
Oh,
through.
okay,
I was
okay.
curious of
It
what
was-
that purchase price was.
This is Tremont Road, correct?
Yes.
23.4373 acres. The purchase agreement that we had done was for $175,000.
Oh, was it? Okay.
How much?
175.
Yeah. I'll have to look back at that.
Okay, so question, obviously, this has been sitting on city property for a while. We've owned it since 2017, and there's been very, very little interest in this property?
No, in fact, the offers that we've mentioned here tonight, to the best of my knowledge, are the only offers
Are the
we've
highest,
ever received
best.
for it.
So, what proof do we have, though, or what fallback do we have that this would be a single homeowner property? And in those 23 acres, can they turn around and decide that they want to develop this?
Yeah, so any activity like that would require the proper steps through our planning and zoning process.
Okay.
You know, there would have to be a subplating plan that would have to be approved, and the zoning would have to be compliant under existing city code. Obviously, the property owner can do what they want to do. I think from staff's perspective, we would rather transfer the property back to a private owner, even if that's going to be a single property, recognizing that for additional property to build out or additional units to build out, there's additional infrastructure cost for us in that location, which, you know, at this point, we'd rather just get it back in private hands. I think that's the staff's perspective.
Mr. President, if I can make a comment.
Yes, sir.
So, understand Council Scriven's the concern there, but I'm also very concerned about us continuing to do new subdivisions on the edge of town that require new roads and sewers and infrastructure that even if the developer pays for, and but at the end of that development, they turn all of that over to us in the city to maintain for the life of the city. And the reality is we can't maintain the infrastructure we have today. And we would have no plan in place today to maintain that infrastructure if that occurred in that subdivision. And I'm all for new developments that we can actually step up as a council and as a city and say we actually have a plan to sustain the infrastructure that we're going to be acquiring back. But I'm really concerned about us stepping out on new developments where we don't have a plan in place, and maybe it'll take us a few years to figure that out. We don't have that today. The one nice thing about selling to this family is there is no additional infrastructure cost on us, nothing new that we're acquiring from a city, and it's going to be income producing. So we're taking a non-wealth producing chunk of land, and we're going to start producing wealth, and there's no inherited debt of infrastructure maintenance that we would be picking up. Now, maybe there's more efficient ways of doing that, but this at least offers a way that on the balance sheets over time we're gaining, we're not losing. So I'm not saying it's the most proficient or efficient way of doing that, but I'm very cautious about us accepting more infrastructure that we have absolutely no idea or plan or strategy for ever maintaining over the long term. So,
Mr. President, it's probably worth noting as well that staff has, over the past couple of years, made attempts to reach out to housing developers. And we've talked to larger firms like Ryan Homes, down to some other smaller regional firms, to try to see if we could, gin up some interest in this particular tract. What we found really was we would probably have to give the property away for the economics at this location to work, given a lot of the median home values in the general vicinity and the infrastructure costs to gain access to the site, given the limited acreage available, which is obviously going to limit the number of units, so it really affects a lot of your price points. So we have made some efforts to see if we could see some additional infill, addition in this property with property that's already in the city. But again, with the home builders that we talked to, the numbers just didn't quite work.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Just one,
Yes, sir.
Mr. President. To Councilman Ursul's point, when we acquire a new subdivision, now that's called growth. So ipso facto, we have to acquire the infrastructure, and that becomes our baby. So either we want growth or we don't want growth. That's the question.
Sure. So I guess I'd counter that, yeah, that is what historically America has called growth for the last 50 years.
Sprawl, we call it.
And
now.
that's how historically every municipality has
Goes
ended
down
up
the hill.
with infrastructure that they can't afford to manage.
Aging
Right?
infrastructure.
So I think we need to desperately looking at all of the land that we already have infrastructure built on that we're not using right now, and start encouraging the use of that land from a wealth producing perspective, and stop looking at continually trying to grow out of our community and building more and more infrastructure that if we're honest, we have no plan to maintain. I mean, listen, we built Rice Cyclist Straits how many years ago? 22 years ago. And we got no plan to take care of the roads today. And we had no plan 22 years ago, but it was deemed to be a good thing. We did the same thing with Sterling Green, right? And a bunch of the other subdivisions. And for better or worse, we've got 3 new subdivisions we're launching on.
Points will take.
And the reality is we have no plans for sustaining those. Now, yeah, there's going to be some income for the first 10 or 15 years because there's no cost on those roads because they're all brand new. But the developer and the homeowners, besides their tax income, and we know right now our current, it's not, and if you ran the numbers and to look at all those new subdivisions, they're not going to pay for their infrastructure that we'd be doing. I challenge ourselves to run those numbers and take a hard look at them, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've done some back of the sheet sets of numbers. I'm very concerned about the adding to the, how many miles of lane roads do we have right now in the city?
400 and something.
Of lane miles?
Yeah, lane
It's
miles.
420 or so, I think, lane miles.
No, total for the city.
Yeah, I think that's single lane miles.
Single lane miles, how much was it?
I think it's 120, is what I want to say.
I think it's 400 and something.
I'm thinking.
Well, your point's well taken.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Again,
I mean, we've got enough lane miles to go, if it's 120, it'd be here to Columbus, but I think it's over 300. That's like from here to Chicago, okay, of lane miles we're trying to manage every year. And I think we need to be extremely cautious before we start taking another chunk of 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 lane miles when we can't sustain the stuff we have today. So.
All right, very good. Any other discussion? This time I'll move for the question, and we'll ask for a roll call. We have a motion. It was by Councilman Dean and seconded by Vice President. Roll call.
Vice President Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Skirtis?
No.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item is Resolution 2022, letter D. It's also titled Emergency. This is authorizing then and now payment of $3,300 to Ohio Alcohol Monitoring for SCRAM monitoring services for the Xenia Municipal Court. Mr. Duke, would you care to explain?
Thank you, Council President. Each year, the municipal court contract for SCRAM monitoring services, they have a PO in place for the entire year's worth of services. In this particular circumstance for 2021, they did have a PO in place. Unfortunately, the cost of those services exceeded the PO amount. There's an outstanding invoice, and the PO is short $3,300, and that is beyond the limit that's placed on us by the state for us to approve then and now statements administratively. And so we're here at council this evening requesting that council approve the then and now statement. There was money available in the budget then. There's money available in the budget today for this purpose. The 212 fund that's referenced there, the account, that's an indigent driver account where dollars are set aside via court fees into that fund for this specific purpose. So the dollars are there and available. Unfortunately, they weren't encumbered in the way that they should have been, and so we're requesting tonight that council approve the then and now statement so that we can go ahead and get the vendor paid.
All right, thank you very much. This time I'll ask for a motion to authorize the payment for $3,300.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Branham. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Before we go to administrative motions, I would like to back up and go ahead and take care of Resolution 2022, letter B, titled Emergency. Mr. City Manager, now that we have that paperwork.
My apologies, miscommunication on who was delivering that. So you should have with you now the agenda report related to our negotiations with our AFSCME Local 101. This is our AFSCME maintenance bargaining unit. Again, we've been working since the fall of last year in good faith negotiations that were actually fairly brief and fairly successful. There are not a lot of changes to this contract, not very many significant changes. The changes that we've incorporated are within the mandate that council has provided, in particular from a wage standpoint. Oftentimes, we will meet in executive session with council in advance of introduction of these items, but we felt there was so little in terms of substantive change with this, and that because the items were within council's mandate, that wasn't necessary. The agenda report that you've been provided does give you a detailed sort of blow-by-blow change of the specific provisions in the language. But again, we believe it's in the city's best interest to move forward with council approval of the authorization to execute the agreement with AFSCME Local 101. And can certainly answer any questions. I think Jason's still here. Jason participated directly on the negotiations. So if you have any questions, we can answer those.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I will open the floor for a motion to accept the agreement with AFSCME. Anyone like to make that motion?
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. I would like to note, it is, and thank you for the paperwork, it is customary for us to receive this at the meeting that we vote on.
And my apologies, I
No.
thought those were distributed here
It's
before
fine.
the meeting, so that you have an opportunity to
So
see.
we're normally looking at it pretty
And
quickly.
I would note, Mr. President, as well, the union has ratified the agreement.
Very good. Okay.
I do have one question, Council President. Page 3, the very last page, Article 21, overtime pay. It says laborers shall be contacted first. We don't have laborers anymore. Is that,
They're still on our rolls technically, so those positions could technically still be filled. They're none currently filled. I think the intent was if they're filled in the future, then. Right.
So I was following up with your question. If not laborers, who do you contact?
it'll just be the 112?
Yeah,
maintenance guy?
the main sorters. Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? All right. We'll go ahead and ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item is an administrative motion. This is amending the rules of council. Madam Law Director, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good evening. As we discussed at your last meeting, we do need to make a few modifications to the rules of council. Most of these are because of the new Title II, specifically Chapter 204, that we adopted in setting up new rules of public notice. In Chapter 204, we say that council meetings and the committees of council, those meetings will be advertised to the public in accordance with the rules of council. But your rules as they currently exist does not address how public notice is given. It addresses only how notice is given to the council members. So the changes to Section 3, those amendments are just to add public notice requirements for regular, special, and emergency meetings of the council. You'll note it's not really any different than what we have in 204. Section 4, we're recommending a small tweak to the order of business after discussion with the city manager. There really isn't any reason to separate out public hearings when you do your legislation, it really should be old business, new business, and that's it. Old business is gonna be your second readings. A public hearing could occur on a first or second reading, so it may occur under old business or new business, but there really isn't a reason to separate those out. So we're suggesting eliminating that from the order of business. The other changes made then that are recommended, there was a typo in section 705J3, and just correcting that. In section 11 for your standing committees, the Legislative Review Committee, when we last met, we discussed adding an alternate for each committee. That alternate would fill in only in the case that one of the 3 committee members could not be there. So what we did in 1102A is add 1 alternate for each committee. We are allowing the President of Council to make those appointments at the first or second meeting in January. Now, C might strike you as a little odd. C is that the appointed alternate shall not attend the committee meetings unless they're filling in for one of the appointed committee members who cannot be there. The reason for that prohibition is when there are 4 of you in a room discussing public business, we have a council meeting. A quorum of council is 4. So it's very important that we keep these committee meetings to 3. So that's why we added that prohibition. The alternate shall not attend the committee meeting unless they are there as a voting member in lieu of one of the committee members. We did put in 1104 that when that alternate is attending for one of the 3 appointed members, they do have the right to vote on anything that comes before that committee. So those are the changes we are recommending. The changes to 11 were reviewed with the Legislative Review Committee. The changes to 3 basically are being recommended by me in light of the changes that we made to Chapter 204. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the work put in on this. And we've had discussion on the alternate situation. And my feeling on the alternate is we created a lot of subcommittees that we've never had before. So our meeting capacity is like doubled, and in some cases almost tripled. So instead of 2 meetings a month, we're averaging 4, maybe 5. I felt an alternate keeps continuity, but allows us to have council representation at the meeting. So that's why we felt like the alternate was our best solution when we have a hard time sometimes having a quorum. So with that said, any questions or comments?
Mr. President.
Yes.
Just one. Madam Law Director, what was your rationale again for striking public hearings?
I'm sorry.
I said, what was your rationale again for striking public hearings?
Oh, the public hearings will still happen. They will simply happen at the time that item otherwise appears on the agenda, whether it's under old business or new business. There really wasn't a reason to separate them out as their own category.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
President.
you. Any other comments? All right. Seeing none, at this time we'll ask for a motion to amend the rules of council.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have a second?
No second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. Any other comments? All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item is an administrative motion approving the schedule of bills tonight in the amount of $450,000. Mr. Duke, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to note on the bills this evening.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Duke?
Page, Mr. President, if
Yes.
I could, please. Page 3, Fillmore Construction. What did the Fillmore people do?
They are the company that is
Awarded our bid
managing our street program this
for
year.
2021.
Or last year in 2021, yeah.
Okay.
Those would have been any change orders or final reconciliations.
Change orders,
Yeah, we
that's
just,
what I
we just
thought.
accepted their work.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask for a motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Branham. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by the Vice President. Roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean,
Aye.
Councilman Branham,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is appointed officials reports. I'm going to start first with our law director, followed by the finance director, and then the city manager. I know yours will be a little more lengthier. So, Madam Law Director, anything else tonight?
The only thing I would say, as you just approved the amendments to the rules of council, Mr. President, if you want to make your appointments, you can make them this meeting or next meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next is finance director.
I have nothing else this evening.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Merriman.
I'm the only one of the three of us doing any work, I guess, so I'll go last. No, I appreciate their contributions as always. I did promise,
What are you trying to say, Brent? You get it out.
if I didn't love them, I wouldn't pick on them. So, we did want to make council aware first that we've been in the process of experiencing a pretty significant COVID outbreak in our maintenance staff. So we have a major staff depletion right now, and we're continuing basic operations, addressing things like a couple of water main breaks this week. But again, we are trying to stay on top of the situation, so we are hopeful that the winter weather system currently projected to go south of us on Sunday, in fact, goes well south of us. And we'll be in good stead while we work through this illness. Second, I wanted to provide an update for council on Xenia Town Square. Our intent was to do this Saturday, but as we've had to postpone that event relative to my correspondence from earlier today, I wanted to give you a brief update tonight. We are expecting final components of the overall plan deliverables from Dillon LLC yet this week into next week. We are very satisfied, pleased with the progress. We meet weekly, in fact, really correspond with them multiple times a week. We'll have a planned meeting every week. We're very close to having those final elements. As Larry Dillon talked about early on in the process, the work of taking a project like this, the unique aspects in our downtown, in this marketplace that we're in today, it necessitates an iterative process with development. And so we've been in the process working with them of looking at layouts and funding models and all the things that go into redevelopment. All that to say that we are expecting that final plan deliverable here by the end of the month. We have laid out the following schedule then moving forward. January 28th, we have tentatively scheduled a meeting of our stakeholder group that we had assembled on the front end of the process to review changes to the overall plan and lay out what the strategy is to that group with the hope that they would provide any additional thoughts or insight and then offer an endorsement. We are tentatively scheduled then to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission on February 3rd at their meeting to lay out the overall plan, present the site plan and so forth with the intent that we would see an endorsement from that group. The following week, we will have some opportunity with Larry and my staff team to do any final revisions, final reviews and adjustments with the intent that we would request a special session of council on Thursday, February 17th with the specific intent of delivering that plan, providing a presentation on the specific aspects from a funding standpoint as well as a physical construction standpoint, overall strategy discussion. After the submittal of that plan, the core functions and deliverables that Dillon LLC was responsible for will be complete. And so we will then have to, working with council, transition the conversation into action steps. And as part and parcel to what's being delivered, we will provide some recommendations for council on next steps. And principally, that next step is going to be identifying a developer of record. And so in February, we'd anticipate that we'll have that conversation. So we are within a month or so of being at an action step phase. And then it'll be important once we get to that juncture that council is making some definitive decisions, which then facilitate all that work that goes, on the planning side then moves into actual execution. So again, look for more information materials coming. Feel free if you want to attend planning and zoning on the 3rd, but you're going to get an even more detailed presentation and comprehensive overview on the 17th. And again, I've gotten a tentative green light from the council president for that special session. So we'll work with the city clerk to make sure that we're getting that on the schedule. So with that, I can entertain any questions, but that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Merriman tonight regarding any issues?
Brent, can you give us an update on the individual who was found deceased at the north end of town? Any more update on that?
Yes, the individual is a resident of a nearby apartment complex. No foul play is believed to be a part of this particular death incident, as was reported in the press release that went out. A student did see the body on the way to work. We do not have autopsy results back as far as I know. So if we felt there was any imminent public danger, because of foul play, we certainly would have followed up by this point. But at this juncture, it appears to be natural causes or some other self-inflicted incident. We just don't have the toxicology back yet.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
President
All
Smith?
right.
I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry, I forgot to bring up, I wanted to share with you guys quickly, I'm sure you saw in the paper that Judge Lewis is leaving us. He's been appointed to the 2nd District Court of Appeals. His last day with us will be Friday. He begins at the Court of Appeals on the 20th. The Supreme Court of Ohio has appointed, we have 2 visiting judges that I'm aware of for the next 2 weeks. Judge Hannah will be with us next week. Judge Barber will be with us the week after. We are hoping we'll have an appointment by the governor towards the end of January. I've not confirmed this, but I believe there will have to be an election for the seat in November, as Judge Lewis was only 2 years into his term. Councilman Scrivens called me today. There is nothing planned. This appointment was so quick, and he's leaving us so quickly. The court didn't even have time. So we do wish him well. Wish we had kept him a little longer, but we wish him luck at the 2nd District. And if and when we hear anything as to who our new municipal court judge will be, I will let you know.
All right, thank you.
Is the clerk position vacating also?
Yes, the clerk position is vacating also. Mr. Pearson is going with Judge Lewis to the 2nd District. They have requested the current deputy clerk, Danette Donatelli, to step up and be the clerk. She has agreed to do that. I don't know anyone over there who knows more and could step into that role and help out better than she could.
Okay.
So we'll have some continuity going in. The clerk is appointed by the judge, so the new judge can pretty much do whatever they want. Of the candidates I've heard, I think they will keep Danette on.
All right, thank you. All right, next on our agenda is reports of boards, commissions, and committees. Our first is Property Management Committee that was scheduled to meet on January 4th. Councilman Scrivens, do you have anything to
Thank you,
report?
Mr. President. The Property Management Committee did meet on the 4th, and we did report out that the Ames property would be okayed through our committee to come to the council for approval. I'll be stepping away from the Property Management Committee and handing the gavel over to Councilman Urschel as the new chair. And thank you for allowing me to serve as the chair for the past year. Just one thing not related to property management. Mrs. Fisher, what day did you say would be Judge Lewis's last day? Ms. Fisher,
I'm sorry.
what day would be Judge Lewis's last day?
Friday.
This
Tomorrow.
coming Friday. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Mercy. That is fast.
Tomorrow. Yeah, it went very quick.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So drive by with your cake, right? Yeah. Thank you. Tell Ron, thank you on behalf of the council.
Right.
Yeah, appreciate that. Next is Board for Recreation, Arts, and Cultural Activities. I chair that. We did cancel our January meeting, and actually our February meeting is canceled as well. Our next meeting will be in March. At that time, we'll be planning the Easter egg hunt, which is scheduled for Saturday, April 16th at Shawnee Park. More information on that to follow. Next on the agenda is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that was scheduled for January 6th. It does have down here canceled. Councilman Brandon, do you have anything you'd like to add on that?
Nothing further. Hopefully looking forward to the February meeting, depending on next council meetings appointments.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone have anything for planning and zoning for Councilman Branham? All right, thank you. Under council council comments, I'll go to my left for Councilwoman Dean.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple items. The STEM school over at the old YMCA, they had open house this past a weekend on Saturday. Had a morning one and an afternoon one. I was able to attend the afternoon one, and it was very interesting. During the morning, I had been asked to attend the Colonel Charles H. Young 100th celebration of his life, and that took place at Central State University, and had the National Park Service was the sponsor, and that would be Mr. Robert Stewart. He's the superintendent there, and I had a chance to meet a 3-star general and a lieutenant colonel, and I tell you, America is blessed with people who serve us. I'll tell you, these guys are on the ball. They had the person who's the head of the Marauder Battalion, which is the cadets from Wilberforce, Central State, Cedarville, and I believe Wittenberg, and they had representatives there. So all in all, it was a very good occasion. Our final goodbyes were said this past week or so to Mr. Dick Strauss. Everybody knew Mr. Strauss. He was an avid training guy. I had met him back when I had hair and I was health inspector. And I'd worked with his wife for over 10 years at the Board of Elections. So both Mr. Dolores and Mr. Dick now have gone on to their final rewards. So see you guys on the other side. Also lost a friend. Her name was Donna Howard. She served on, I think, the Beautification and Environmental Commission with us years ago with Bud Schmidt and Pat Felton, and she was a stalwart. She loved the city of Xenia, and she stayed up with what was going on the council. So Donna went to her reward this week. I went to see her, I think it was last Wednesday. It was in the afternoon, and I got to the desk, and I got delivered the bad news, but it was good news because I knew where she was going, and I knew she was ready. And then finally, Mr. President, we went by and paid our final respects to C. Archgreave the father. Archgreave the son used to work for the city. He was a city commissioner back in the day, and went by and said goodbye to his dad. So it's Archgreave the dad, Archgreave the son, and Archgreave the grandson. So that's pretty good lineage there. And just want to thank Judge Lewis for his service. Hated to see him go, but I told him, I said, when the window gets closed, I said, the door gets open. So he's going through the open door, and good luck to him, and we'll see him down the road. We're not seeing the last of Ron Lewis, I guarantee you that. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much, Councilman Scrivens.
Oh, and one final thing, Mr. President, I'm sorry. The Martin Luther King celebration will be coming up this Monday at the Zion Baptist Church at 565 East Market Street. And I'm happy to report our keynote speaker for this year will be none other than Councilman Will Urschel. He's accepted the mantle to bring the message to us, and we're all anxious to hear what thus saith the Lord to the church. So with that, I will have the honor of introducing Councilman Urschel. So we'll make sure the bus is parked outside, so I won't have too far to throw him. So.
That's right.
But we're looking forward to having him to come and address the Xenia Area Association of Churches and Ministries and the African American Ministerial Alliance. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
President.
you. All right, Councilman Branham, what do you have for us?
I've got nothing really extra to add. I did tell my wife that I would say hi to my son tonight because I guess when I come up on the screen, he likes to freak out, and, because he sees Dad on the screen. So hi, Luke, buddy. I'm proud of you this week, so appreciate it.
That's all right.
That's good.
Awesome, thank you very much. All right, Councilman Dean.
I don't have anything else to add.
All right, thank you very much. Vice President Urschel.
Sure, just a couple items. I've been attending the Xenia Township trustee meetings once a month at their first meeting each month, and they had their reorganization at this last one, and no specific items that were collaborative items for us at the council. But anyways, I will say they're very open to have good, frank discussions during that time, and have included a lot of just smaller discussions during the township meeting, so I appreciate that. Been going to the county commissioners meetings, and Council Scrivens has been attending long before I have started with that, but one item that the last two is that the county commissioners are looking to have a section of US 35 named after our late sheriff. And Brent, have you been in the discussions with them?
Yeah, Councilman, Commissioner Perales, I think is, to some extent, has been spearheading things, and I think the other commissioners are very much on board. So he reached out, I believe, over the Christmas break, and there was a request of the jurisdictions that would host portions of that to pass a resolution.
Correct.
So I think I put that on our planning calendar for
27th.
our next meeting, because it was
Okay.
too late to put it on this agenda once we got the final go-ahead. They were doing some research to make sure there were no conflicts with any other prior actions to
Correct.
designate that. So I did convey to Mr. Perales and the members of the commission that I anticipated council would be supportive of that, and I thought it was a really good idea.
Yeah. So I believe we will, and I'm glad that they're looking for a way to honor the sheriff there with that, and they're tentatively looking for a section between US 42 and 68
yeah.
to have named for him. And the only thing I'd add is that I think initially they thought it would be a very longer term process to go through the state legislature. There may be an expedited process that they can do directly through ODOT, and but a couple of things they're looking for is a resolution from us as a council that we would support that, because it needs to be done for those municipalities that have jurisdiction there. So I'm glad we'll get that on our docket, and I just encourage the rest of the council members to look for expedited approval of that. The Xenia Township will need to do the same type of thing as well too. I went to the last, I've been going to the school board meetings as well too, so the school board did a reorganization, and we have a new school board president and vice president. And they also at the last meeting identified their members who will be participating in BRCA and EDAB as well too. So Mr. Leitenheimer will be with us at BRCA, and the new president, Josh May will be our new EDAB representative from the school, and so glad to have them on board. We'd also had a request from a couple of the school board members and the administrator of the school, concerns about some flags being flying on property that has some very inappropriate language, and specifically one that has been put very close to one of the elementary schools now. And so I spent a lot of time with our law director and learned a lot about the differences between vulgarity, profanity, and obscenity and threatening speech. And correct me if I'm wrong, obscenity and threatening speech are not protected speech within the United States within some constraints, but profanity, obscenity and threatening speech, but vulgarity and profanity are. And so I just want to thank Danette for spending a lot of time doing a lot of research for us, but there's no specific actions that can be taken under the current obscenity laws. We don't need any new obscenity laws. There's plenty that are at the state level, and obscenity laws for obscenity in the presence of minors. But since the Supreme Court in their litmus test for obscenity has determined that the language that's on these flags is not obscene, but just vulgar, none of those can be applied to that. Is that a fair short rendition?
That would be a fair assessment. Obscenity has to do with sexually explicit material, which the language on these flags isn't.
Mm-hmm.
This language will be classified as profanity. Long tradition of cases from the U.S. Supreme Court that is protected First Amendment speech. This has been a conversation going on between the law directors in Ohio for quite some time, because every community has some of these flags. It's sad that we've hit a point in this country that we're not observing common courtesy to each other and our neighbors, and we can't have political discourse without that kind of language. But unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about those signs.
So this isn't any comment on the rights to have political free speech, but I've personally had quite a number of parents and grandparents to say we're just disturbed about having our kids driving down the road and having to observe this, and can't we have some civil discourse within our community without this? So there may not be any legal action to be taken, but I think I would encourage anyone to have some good discussions with folks who are flying these kind of flags, just to say, we're not trying to remove your right to make political speech, but there are things that are just not wise or proper or kind or good for us in our community, and especially to have around our children as well too. So I'm going to make a commitment to go stop by a couple of homes and have that discussion and see where it goes. But I'm also planning on working with our law director to see if at least there's a resolution we could make along those lines to make a statement for us as council. So then I'll be seeing you about that, and we'll see if we can hammer that out. But I think it's good for us as a council to take a stand on that. Once again, not to limit anyone's right of stating political positions, but we should be setting a tone within our city and encouraging folks to be thinking and be considerate to the kids of our community as well too. Yep. And then once again, I think next Monday night is going to be a wonderful celebration. A lot of times we get a holiday off and people are thinking about, okay, I got an extra day to do some housework. Nobody's going to be doing picnics on Monday, I don't think, looking at the weather. But there's a reason why we have a day to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King. And I've been listening to his sermons, and I've been through about 40 hours of them so far. I got about another 30 before next Monday night. And many times I think we've heard some of his political speeches, but to really understand the heart of this man, to hear his sermons from the 50s and the 60s, one of the things that has struck me, and I'm going to speak about this on Monday night, was that he not only stood up to encourage folks to not participate in injustice. He says it's a moral imperative that we not participate with injustice, but he said we need to hate the injustice, but we need to redeem the person who is oppressing us. And it's the second part that I had not heard before. And he brought this out in almost every sermon that he gave. And to have the moral courage to say that we need to not hate the individual. We need to redeem the individual. We need to hate the sin, but we need to look for redemption of the individual. He spoke over and over again about his desire to see those that threaten his family, that threw stones at him, that demeaned him publicly, to have a day where he could sit down at the table with them and sit down as brothers and sisters. That kind of courage, that personal courage, I think is lost in our current culture. And it's lost in our political speech. It's lost in our civil speech. We're not thinking about that at all. And we desperately need that. It's been very convicting to me, personally, to hear those sermons. And for me to think, could I have given that sermon? And I don't think so, because I'm too small of a man to have given that sermon. I'm too small of a man to have pursued that. But it has been a challenge to me. So I would encourage you to come. We may even play parts of those sermons if we can figure out the audio system, because I think you need to hear this from him. And maybe a rich evening for us, but a good challenge for us as a community as well. So 7 o'clock, Monday night, Mount Zion, Zion Baptist, I'm sorry, here, Pastor Gary Chapman's church here. 565 East Main, and just a wonderful time. We'll have other parts of the service as well too, but a great time, not just to honor an individual, but to honor his understanding of what redemption is all about. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, can you correct me? You had mentioned the need for a meeting Tuesday with Property Management Committee, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We'll be reaching out to the Property Management Committee.
Okay, so that will be the current Property Management Committee at this time, which is Councilman Scrivens, Vice President Urschel, and Councilman Levi Dean. I'll have those folks get with you. I had originally made some council committee assignments due to the fact we were having a council retreat Saturday, so people would know their place. I'm going to go ahead and just put that together with council commissions. So if you have any concerns or requests on a committee, just shoot me an email this weekend, and next week I'll make the additional appointments for the next meeting in January. So the only thing I have to mention, no, I will not, but you could present that.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the request of staff, at the request of council, we are going into an executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters to consider appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public officials and employees per City Xenia Ordinance 20604 and ORC 121.22. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. When we come back from the executive session, which should take less than 5 to 10 minutes, we will not have a work session, and then we will simply adjourn from the executive session. We do not plan to have any votes after that meeting, so there will be nothing else for anyone to vote on. The only other thing I can say before we vote to go into executive is Who Day. A lot of football this weekend, so enjoy it, folks. Okay, and also happy Martin Luther King Day on Monday.
Along those lines, we would be remiss if we didn't say that the city offices are closed Monday for the holiday. We didn't mention that earlier, but wanted to let the public know that the city offices will be closed on Monday.
Just a reminder, the public that's watching the city building will be closed Monday for Martin Luther King Day. Thank you. And at this time, we'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.